Welcome to Talking Point, a podcast brought to you by Jordan Callum. Here you'll find everyday conversations about everything and nothing in particular. On this episode, we talk to Callum Gordon, founder of Mind Matter Merch, about mental health and how you can make a difference. Thanks for joining me, Cal. What's for anyone who doesn't know, can you tell me about what you're up to these days?
Yeah, Jordan. So essentially, I've just started a little project called Mind Matter Merch. And essentially, that idea is that we work with different artists within the Sunshine Coast community or within Australia or international, wherever the reach takes us, essentially. And we give them kind of a brief to follow, and they come up with a design that is interpretive to displaying support for mental health. The structure that we give them is pretty broad, so we want them to have full artistic ownership over their creation.
Yep.
And it's also as a way for us as a small business to, I guess, pay local artists for their work, because a lot of times in the arts community, it's a lot of give, without getting anything back. So I guess one of the things that was really important for me was to, make sure it's equitable and transparent and actually give them a percentage of the profits from their designs that sell, or if they prefer an upfront fee. Yeah, so that's just a new thing that we've been working on. We officially launched for about a week and a half now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's keeping me pretty busy in between
Nice.
university and I guess my own mental health. So exciting times, but challenging times nonetheless.
So what is the inspiration for this? Where did this all come from?
So essentially, I just noticed that there was a bit of a gap, especially in Australia, in regards to a business model that not only, I guess, worked with local artists, but kind of provided a platform to support mental health in young people, especially. There's lots of organizations out there, of course, like Headspace, which is our partner that we've just partnered with, but there's different mental health services in the different areas in Queensland and Australia, and they look after young people, which is important. But I think half the problem for them is that they are non-for-profit, so for them to actually have that reach and engage people outside of their, I guess, current sphere is really hard for them. So for us, it's kind of, we market our designs to the general public, and a lot of the times people will buy them because they like the design, they think it's funky, they want to support their, friend who's an artist.
Yeah.
But while they're doing that, they're supporting mental health. So it's super important for us that we're able to, I guess, raise awareness in conjunction with the services that mental health organizations offer.
And I noticed you've partnered with Headspace. Is there a particular reason for that? Is Headspace close to you personally, or is like are you sending out a general mental health message, I guess, or is there something more particular that you want to focus on?
Yeah, right. So for me, I guess personally, I've been seeing someone at Headspace for my own mental health, and that's been extremely rewarding, I guess, to talk to someone in the industry that has had experience with young people. I've had lots of friends as well that have used Headspace as a service. Essentially, I noticed that the wait times to actually see someone for help in this system, if you're going through someone like Headspace or other providers, it's still a bit of a long wait. There still can be a couple of weeks between when you actually, initially reach out to get help. So for me, I was lucky enough to see people at Headspace quite quickly and get ongoing support. But if you're in an area where there's a Headspace and the population is quite dependent on its service,
Yep.
They need, I guess, funds to actually employ more professionals to work with young people, or, have different rooms to help different people, or just general admin staff to actually process the demand. So I guess for me, it was an obvious choice to go for Headspace because, the prime demographic for mental health in this country, in Australia, is generally 16 to 25 years old, and that's Headspace's key demographic, really. So, if I could give them millions of dollars, I would, but this is kind of the small gesture I can do to help.
Would you say, I guess, one of the main problems with these kinds of services being in high demand is that it forces people to spend money that they often might not have to seek help that they need? And I think that's why, businesses like your own are important in supporting these kind of outcomes for people.
Yeah, I think that because there is such a demand for these services in our country, we're still lucky enough though to be in a country like Australia where there is subsidized or free services that provide and cater for mental health.
Yep.
In countries like America, you have friends in the States, and they don't really have anything like Headspace, or they don't have government funded organizations or non for profit organizations. It's more like, you pay an hourly rate to see someone for help if you need it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in Australia, we're lucky to have the service like Headspace, which is amazing. Um, but, there is that question that I always ask myself, which you just raised as well, is
Yep.
that, people who need that help straight away, they'll probably go out of their way to spend their wage trying to get professional help.
Mm.
And I mean, at the end of the day, if that's something that they need to do, I think they're still doing the right thing by getting help.
Yep.
I just hope that, when they do go to an organization, they don't get taken advantage of
Mm.
in terms of, multiple appointments or multiple fees.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can free up, I guess, the waiting times with non-for-profit organizations like Headspace,
Mm.
we can get more people in the doors to actually get professional help.
Yep. And in terms of feedback, I know it's fairly early days for you at the moment, but have you received feedback on the products or on what you're trying to do?
Yeah, so when we launched the business, I guess it was a nerve-wracking time because it's kind of always that pinnacle point where you reach the 1 week mark and you're like, are we gonna make sales? Are we gonna actually do something? And luckily enough, when we launched, there was actually a huge amount of support from, I guess, my personal community.
Yep.
I guess a lot of people that I'm connected with kind of know how open I am in regards to being an advocate for mental health. So when I kind of put it out there, I was doing this.
Mm.
A lot of that support kind of came from my own community, which is really nice to see. In terms of actually products being sold, we've actually sold a lot more than what I thought we would, and a lot of it's just been through Facebook, really.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, just I guess targeting key people on Facebook and sending out influencers some designs and saying, do you mind like wearing these to support mental health? And
Mm-hmm.
people have been really keen to get on board with it, which I think is the first step, is having that conversation and actually making the decision to engage people who want to support mental health. And I think it's something that is pretty close to everyone right now, given the current circumstances
Mm.
that the world's facing.
And would you say that these issues at the moment around isolation and that kind of thing, would you say they affect young people particularly?
I think especially they affect young people. I think especially within that age bracket of 16 to 25. It's kind of the category where you're kind of finding yourself as a young adult in the world. You're always socializing with your friends. You're going out doing things. If you've got something on your mind, you can go to a friend's house. You can go to a park. You can
Mm.
go to a shopping center. You can kind of find a way to escape in those mediums. But given that we've all been in isolation for weeks now,
Mm.
I can see in the next couple of weeks to come, there's going to be a massive spike of people with problems coming forward.
Mm.
And I mean, they might be problems that aren't necessarily caused from being in isolation, but they might have always been there, but isolation has kind of made them spike.
Mm.
So I think it's really important going forward that the government actually invests in mental health services in our country after the pandemic's over, because I think they'll see in the next couple of weeks that it's a massive spike, which is troubling, I guess. Like I said, there is
Mm.
already congested times for organizations to actually intake
Mm.
patients and actually talk to them and things like that. So
Yep.
I think it's going to be quite scary
For sure.
in the mental health field.
And in terms of what you've personally been doing, how have you been dealing with this time yourself, and have you been keeping in touch with people, like this, or have you been able to see people in person now that the restrictions have eased a bit?
I think that one of the things is that we're lucky for is social media. It does make the world a lot smaller
Mm.
than we think. We're able to, post a photo, get comments. We're able to video chat people like we're doing now. We're able
Mm-hmm.
to phone them. So essentially, I guess for me personally, it's been, I guess, relying on friends on Messenger just to reach out and say, hey, how you going today? Like, what are you doing?
Hmm.
Um, I think as well as finding connection in isolation. Like
Yep.
we don't have to be excluded from people. We could
Hmm.
just, be safe from people, but still have communication. So for me, it's just been, I guess, activity is normal. A lot of my relationships with people have been online since I was a teenager, so
Hmm.
nothing's really changed in that fact. But the other day I did go out and get a coffee with a friend, and it was, I guess, immediate. It was such a boost of happiness to be able to, hug a friend, get a coffee, go for a
Hmm.
walk.
Yep.
So it's the little things like that that I think we take for granted.
Hmm. And I guess this ties in well with what you've studied at uni, hasn't it? Have you, for people who might not know, what's your background in terms of that?
Yeah, so for me, I did a Bachelor of Comms at university, so communications, so a little bit of journalism, a lot of public relations, and a little bit
Hmm.
of HR. So I guess I've always been in the field of talking to people and knowing people. So I guess my degree has really helped me in
Hmm.
that sense, in terms of a business sense.
Yep.
I was lucky enough to do a lot of internships when I was at uni, and those internships, I guess, I learned so much about small business, so much about publicity, the do and don'ts, how to get media attention, what not to do,
Hmm.
how to keep your brand authentic,
Yep.
which is a big thing for me, is it being an authentic experience for people.
Hmm.
And then now I've been doing a lot of freelance work for a while, but I've decided to go back to uni and do my master's in education.
Hmm.
And I think that's because I really want to work with young people.
Hmm.
So if I can eventually get into a position in a school where I can, I guess, be a guidance officer or be like a counselor at a school, I think that would be really
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
rewarding. So I guess I'll just keep continuing on my path with my
Hmm.
master's in teaching and kind of make things happen slowly, but at
Yeah.
least there's an end game in sight. So
Hmm.
yeah.
And I guess that's what it's largely about is talking, and um, I think that's really central to what we're experiencing at the moment with all of the restrictions and what's going on and things, and people, like myself, for example, I have family on the Sunshine Coast and I'm living in Mackay, and a lot of people are in a similar situation, because before even today you couldn't travel down the street to visit your own family, who might have been a half a K away. So I think it's really changed the lives of a lot of people in that way.
I think especially as well with schools being closed,
Mm.
I think that's such a massive thing for young people as well, is that when you look at a school environment, like it
Yeah.
provides, education, provides life skills, but it also provides, a
Mm.
social environment
Yep.
where people can, talk about their problems, see their friends, do things like that. And
Mm.
that's just been, I guess, it was such a quick decision for the government to close schools. And unfortunately, it had to be a quick decision because the virus was becoming, I guess, unmanageable. People didn't know what it was going to look like in 48 hours, let alone next week. So I guess for children to be snapped out of going to school to be stuck at home.
Yep.
And I mean, we don't know what their background is like at home. Like for them, school could be like their escape. And for mental
Mm.
health, when you've got somewhere to escape, that's really, really important.
Mm.
So I think I think I have a lot of respect for the kids going through school at the moment,
Yep.
or I guess, facing things like not being able to graduate with their friends because of the way schools were closed, having to make up marks and exams and missing key important things of their teenage years.
Mm.
I think it's going to be really troubling as well in the next couple months to come with mental health, which is what we talked about earlier. But
Yep. So, what would you say is your main goal for this business? Like, what sort of message do you want to get out there, and what do you hope that these products will mean to people?
yeah, so when I was, I guess planning the business, it was always what kind of business model is this going to be?
Yep.
For me, it was never going to be a business model where it was something that would make me rich, make me
Mm.
money. It was always something that, at the core of it, make money for mental health organizations. But I guess the core thing that I think is something that, regardless of how much money it could make, how many organizations we could support, the number one thing that is still very core is
Mm.
that it's having awareness and starting a conversation.
Yep.
And I think that if we can get our designs out there in the next couple of weeks to different people, we can start having conversations about the importance of awareness, because I think that's the first step, is
Mm,
creating that awareness in a society and in a community, and then from that stems further action. So
for sure.
yeah, raising awareness.
I just purchased a tea in lemon earlier.
Oh,
I
really?
don't know if you saw it come through, but I thought to myself, I've never worn a lemon shirt before, but it's for a good cause, so we might as well go outside the comfort zone a bit. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. But Australia Post is understandably in slow motion at the moment, so we'll see how we go. But yeah, I hope that it sort of spreads wider for you, but yeah, it should be good. I think it's good to, like you said, just get the message out there, and people might say, "Oh, what's this shirt about?" or "What's this mind matter thing?" And then you can sort of have a conversation, and it opens up the topic with somebody, which is always a good plan, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing, and it's one of the things that I guess so many businesses in the world, it's something that money can't buy, is
Mm,
that authentic conversation.
mm,
I know companies spend thousands of dollars on, search engine optimization and Google AdWords and things like that. But at the
mm,
end of the day, is if it's an authentic conversation between customers and
mm.
consumers, I think that's something that's unbuyable in today's current economy. And I think as well, we're lucky enough to be in a situation where the Sunshine Coast community, especially, is very supportive of small business.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I've got like so many friends that run small businesses. They have shops or they run online websites and things like that.
Hmm.
And the amount of support just from other businesses has been just really nice. And I
Yeah,
don't know
for
if you'd
sure.
get that. I don't know if you'd get that in like metropolitan areas.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, but I guess essentially where we want to go with the business is that we want to partner with an organization, not necessarily a mental health organization, but it might be, I don't know, like an insurance company, it might be a
Hmm.
small local business or something like that. And essentially, we'd love to, kind of dedicate a day to raising mental health in that business.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So whether it be, providing that business with a t-shirt for all their employees, and on one day they all wear them and they, raise money for Headspace that way, or a different mental health organization.
Hmm.
Essentially, I think that's kind of the end game that we want to kind of get
Yeah.
noticed for, is actually going into organizations and
Hmm.
providing them with a shirt so that that conversation can start in the workplace and then extend to their family and then their friends,
Hmm.
and kind of just builds on each other like that, which is the authenticity that I think mental health needs. Especially, it needs to be a genuine connection.
Hmm. Sure, and I think there's a lot of businesses. I remember living in Maroochydore, there was a cafe actually in Mooloolaba that donated a large portion of their sales to not for profits as well, and I thought that was great. But it's just something that uh, is nice to see these days. I think more and more people are cottoning on to this idea that business doesn't have to just be for profit, and to make money, you can do good as well with it. Um, yeah, because I think a lot of people, they might think, for example, with the cafe, like, oh, that might not be fulfilling. You're just making coffee, but these guys are really pushing hard into that space of giving back, and I think for them that would have been so fulfilling. So um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think it's an intrinsic reward as well that comes with it. I mean, I look back now to, I guess, when I was going through, I guess, the worst stage of my mental health, which was probably a couple of years ago, and I didn't know anything about Headspace. I didn't
mm,
know about reaching out for help. I didn't know about anything.
yep,
Um, so I think that for businesses to actually, come forward and donate a percentage of their profits to organizations like Headspace or
mm,
other organizations, it's important, because not only are they giving money, but they're giving awareness.
mm,
What's to say if, 5 years ago when I was, 16, 17, if I was to go get a coffee from that coffee shop and saw that they supported Headspace, I
mm,
mean, I could have known about them a lot earlier.
yeah, for sure, yep.
Um, so it's just kind of like a domino effect that happens, I think.
Mm.
Yeah.
Um, I was just thinking, in terms of the artists, I did see some artwork there. What artists have you had, or artists that have you had get in touch, or who's
Yeah.
contributing to the project?
Yeah. So a lot of my friends actually are artists, which is, I guess, really handy in a business sense.
Hmm.
Our first artist that we contracted, his name's Finn, and I've been following his stuff on Instagram for a little while,
Hmm.
and his style was really, I guess, comical and comedic, and I really liked the way that he kind of expressed
Yeah,
different
yeah.
ideas.
Yep.
Um, so I reached out to him, and he developed two of the designs.
Mm-hmm.
The other designs on there I've kind of developed myself.
Mm-hmm.
But there's, I guess at the moment we've probably got about 3 to 4 artists that we're working with to develop designs. And because I guess the work that they provide, Mind Metal merch, is so authentic, it's not something that can be done in like 2 days. It's something that takes time
Mm.
to, I guess, plan, time to, sketch, time to refine. Um, and I think that's half the experience as well, is that when you buy a shirt, you are not just buying a product, you're buying awareness, you're buying support of local artists. So there's multiple factors that come into it, but
Mm-hmm.
we're always looking for new artists to work with. So if you're listening out there and you're an artist, feel
Yeah,
free
yeah.
to get in contact. We'd love to hear from you.
So in terms of social media and people getting in contact and following Mind Matter, how should they go about that?
Yeah, so I guess our first point of contact would be Facebook. That's probably where we're most active,
Mm-hmm.
which is Mind Matter Merch. If you search it, it will come up. Um, when we first launched on Facebook, within 24 hours, we had 300 likes,
Oh, wow.
which is, I guess, in terms of social media these days, that's pretty cool. I
Mm.
kind of like set it all up, went to bed the next morning, woke up to so many notifications on my phone. I didn't know what had happened. I was
Mm.
like, am I being tagged in a multiple amount of memes or something? Like, I
Yeah,
have no
yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
And it was the page had really kicked off. So
Mm.
that's really cool. I was looking at the back end the other night, and we had, I think, from 2 posts, we had a reach of like 5,800 people or something. So
Nice, yeah.
we're definitely hitting people, I guess, in the face with mental health exposure.
Mm.
But I think that's super important, is to be able to use social media as a platform instead of spreading negativity. We can spread some positivity, especially at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. And I know, being a former journalist myself, and with what you've done at university, you can appreciate that the news is often a negative source of info, and so is social media. It can be quite a bit of a downer at times. So it's good to get positivity in there when you can, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's exactly right, is that there is so much negativity in
Mm.
the world, especially in media. And I mean, it's not the media's fault that there is so much negativity. It's just something that happens in the day to day, and it's something that is, good to catch on camera. It's something good to spin a story about.
Mm.
I think that mental health, though, has a big spot in the media.
Mm.
I think there should be a lot more focus on, I guess, positive things,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
because that itself is actually a whole other wormhole to go down. Is the amount of negativity people see really affects
Mm.
their internal mood, and it actually changes things in their brain chemistry because they're exposed to so much negativity that
Mm.
they start to change who they are as a person. So it's quite scary.
I guess on the other hand, I noticed you had a good feature from the Sunshine Coast Daily as well. Have you been getting some support from local media on the Sunshine Coast?
Yeah, so we had an article that ran in the Sunshine Coast Daily and in the News.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really, really cool.
Nice.
Um, we, yeah, approached them and they did an article. So that was really, really rewarding. It was
Mm.
nice to see, like I said, a positive experience. In terms of other local stuff, I guess now moving on to this podcast is really cool.
Mm.
Never thought I would be doing a podcast ever.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll get a bit more
Mm.
media attention.
For sure.
I guess it's about being, I guess, authentic about it. Is that, do we put time and effort into seeking promotions through media and things like that, or do we spend that time promoting mental health awareness to our own
Mm.
community? So I think it's something that, as a business, we have to really work out
For sure. I
what's
think,
gonna better serve our cause, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, it's a bit of a catch-22 because you can spend money, for example, on targeted advertising, spreading the message and the products out there, which could lead to more sales, which can lead to more money to mental health and headspace, right? But then it's like, where are you getting the best return on investment? Maybe you overspend on the advertising and really you could have spent that money itself on donations, and where are you going to get the best bang for buck, I guess, like you said. So that's a bit of a challenging one, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's, like I said before, the big end game for us would be to work with like a local business or an
Mm.
organization. So
Yeah.
it might be an insurance company, for example, and if they bought, 300 shirts, like
Yep.
something like that could be like, life changing to a mental health organization when you think of it.
Hmm.
Um, so I think it's about being smart with exposure and letting the exposure really build for itself,
Yep.
which I think then makes it more authentic.
For sure.
Yeah.
And who's been involved along the way? Like I know you've obviously been the founder of it, but has there been other people sort of in the background that have helped along the way to sort of make it a reality?
Yeah, so I guess essentially, I guess like you said, it started with myself. It was kind of stemmed off the fact that,
Mm-hmm.
I used to experience really, really bad anxiety when I was, 16, 17,
Yep.
and was like, working for the first time, having to go through part-time work and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess essentially I kind of, I guess not grew out of it, but, I reached out for help, got help and things like that, and
Yep.
then started this little business. And at the front of it, there really hasn't been anyone else that's been helping with it. I guess I've had a lot of support though from
Mm.
key people.
Yep.
So I guess, bouncing ideas off people.
Mm.
So got a couple of friends from uni that I said, do you think this is a good idea? Like, is this something worth doing? And I mean, at the end of the day, it's not like I'm going to lose anything from doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Um, all that I'm going to gain is the experience,
Mm.
but also then the fact that I'm helping a community and an organization like Headspace.
Mm.
Yeah, but I'd love for more people to get involved with the business, get other people involved and have their ideas and stuff like that.
For sure. Yeah.
Um, it's been a little bit limiting at the moment with lockdown restrictions because when we went to launch, I had this whole schedule planned. I had, days where I was going to go and do photo shoots with people,
Yep.
capture content for Instagram and Facebook, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the world kind of went crazy and everything shut down.
Yeah.
So a little bit behind on the promotional end, but I've had a lot of support from photographers that have said that they're really, really keen to
Mm-hmm.
take photos
Mm-hmm.
for their portfolio
For sure.
of, of models wearing the shirts and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which has been really rewarding to kind of talk to them and kind of bounce ideas off the fact that,
Mm.
they want to shoot, models and stuff like that. But on the other hand, kind of counteracted and said, well, if we're going to shoot people, it needs to represent people of all backgrounds. They can't all be,
Mm.
size 12 models, for example. There should be diversity in that range that we're promoting.
For sure. Yeah.
So I think it's interesting when you talk to other people and get their ideas, and then you can kind of formulate what you want to do together. So I'm really grateful for those photographers and their time and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the thing, is just sort of representing. It's hard, it's a hard task to represent diversity in everybody, but you can only try so hard, I guess, to be inclusive in the imagery that you're putting out there, I guess.
Yeah, and I think the big thing as well is that, mental health affects everyone.
Hmm.
It doesn't discriminate based on what you look like or
Yeah.
what job you do, what your racial background is. And like interestingly, like half of all Australians aged from 18 to 85 years old will experience a mental illness at some point in their life.
Hmm.
When you work out the stats of that in regards to our population, it's 7.3 million young people in Australia will experience a
Wow.
mental health problem. So
Yep.
when you look at the facts and the figures
Hmm.
by the ABS that way, like that's a lot of people to represent and try and raise awareness to.
Hmm.
And I guess, we can only do what we can do. And it's a journey, just like mental health is a journey, really.
Yeah, for sure. I guess there's so much that you could talk about in terms of this, because it is something that affects so many people, like you said. But in terms of what you want to get out there right now, is there anything else you'd like to add in terms of mental health or how people can support Headspace or anything like that?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that people can do to make a difference is, I think, having just a conversation.
Hmm.
Just reach out to someone. It might be someone that you've followed on Facebook for ages but never talked to. It might be someone that you talk to every day, but you don't actually talk about personal things.
Mm-hmm.
Reach out to someone and say, how are you going? Like, how's your mind? How are you keeping up with everything in isolation? Do you want to talk about anything?
Mm-hmm.
I think in terms of what people can do, I mean, it's a tough economy. Like, a lot of people aren't working. They don't have money to, buy a t-shirt, buy a
Yeah, yeah.
beanie, buy a tote bag or something like that.
Yep.
And I know, like, for example, like our products aren't, as affordable as some other businesses in terms of merchandise, but
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff is Australian made,
Mm-hmm.
Australian produced. It's all local, so
Yep.
it's not like we're supporting overseas industries. And I think that's the biggest thing for us when we started was keeping it Australian and
Mm-hmm.
I guess authentic. But if people want to help, they can, share the page on Facebook. They can, buy a gift for a friend for a birthday or something. But
For
most
sure.
importantly, have a conversation about mental health with your neighbor, your friend, I guess anybody really. I think that's the biggest thing that you can do to support
Mm.
Mind Matter Merch and Headspace is just have a conversation and it costs you nothing.
Mm. That's so true. I think it's almost like a cruel irony, isn't it, that you've launched this almost at the beginning of these restrictions and this time that we're in, but at the same time, it's such a great time as well because it's such a good reminder of the challenges that life can throw at us, and I guess in this sense we're all in this together as well. So it's something that everybody can relate to.
Yeah, and that's so true, Jordan. I think so many people probably don't realize that what mental health is.
Mm.
For me, for example, my journey through mental health, I didn't even know what anxiety was until I went to a doctor and saw a doctor and then
Yep.
got referred to Headspace. Like, I had no idea. Like, it's not something that when I was in high school was discussed. It wasn't something that
Mm.
was talked about in the media. It wasn't something that was on
Yep.
TV.
Yep.
Um, and I think now, like, even when you watch mainstream media,
Mm.
there is a lot more mention of mental health
Yep.
currently during COVID-19, um, which I guess, if mainstream media is focusing on mental health, it must be
Mm.
a massive issue that needs raising. But I guess my worry is that once the coronavirus is over and things go back to, I guess, normal, I think I hope that mental health isn't forgotten.
Yep.
Because there'll be people that will probably struggle with things for months to come
Mm.
as an outfall. So I think it's a very scary environment we're heading into.
For sure. Before we wrap up, I guess, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Before we wrap up, no, I just want to say that I've enjoyed talking to you and I hope that you become a bit more enlightened on mental health and hopefully you can have a conversation with someone tomorrow about it. Or even after this chat, you can reach out to someone and say how you're going.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Callum, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
That's okay. Thanks for your time, Jordan.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to Talking Point Podcast. I'm Jordan Cullen. See you next time.